It's on, Will.
All right. Okay. Excellent. Richard hates weak people.
Yeah. Hey, I don't want people to find that out. I'm supposed to be a kind, compassionate counsellor. You can't let people know that I loathe weakness.
Physical weakness, man.
I don't really hate weak people. Is that true or not? You know, it's actually an indicator of psychopathy.
Is it?
Yeah. Psychopaths frequently their dialogue there, if you do like a discourse analysis, they'll usually get around to weakness and how they hate weakness. And we both know somebody who rants on about weakness all the time.
All the time.
All the fucking time.
But what I've noticed is obsessed people are obsessed with people's weakness.
Yeah. If you're obsessed with other people's weakness. Yeah. And everything is sort of like, it's painted in black and white as like, here are the strong and here are the weak.
Yeah.
And that's very similar to the way people with borderline, like psychopathy and borderline personality disorder, sit in the same cluster.
Right, okay.
And people with borderline personality disorder, they do that similar thing of categorizing people. But I've heard it done differently. It's not like weakness and strength. With borderlines, I've often heard them say winners and losers.
Ooh.
Yeah, winners and losers. And the problem with borderline, like a psychopath will be like, I hate the weak and I am strong.
Yeah.
A borderline will be like, I hate losers, but I am a fucking loser. So I hate myself. I better cut myself. I better hurt myself. I better abandon myself. Is the more that's the classic way that it plays out.
For borderline personality disorder, right? Okay, I thought when people self-harmed, it was because they were feeling so much psychological pain that they hurt themselves physically to stop, or to do something that hurts more than the psychological.
That's right.
pain.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Because when sportsmen and stuff talk about how crazy they've got, there's a really good cycling story of a professional cyclist, and he was in so much pain that when he was cycling up a huge mountain, that to get rid of the pain in the legs, he started grinding his teeth on the way up. So all he could feel was a pain in his teeth. And by the time he got to the top of the mountain, there wasn't a lot of teeth left.
Jesus.
But he won the race. Yeah. But obsessed people love that story.
I think a lot of people.
And like looking at your face now, you're quite enjoying. You're like, that's fantastic.
He managed to commit to something, and he self-sacrificed in order to achieve his goal. And then when it was over, it was over. And he went to the bottom of the mountain, and he committed seppuku with honour, and we remembered him. And that was that. Purer times, well, better times.
Better times.
Well, it was going to be called Samurai Life Coach for a while, but I thought Spartan Life Coach is better. Plus, I'm white. Well, Greek people won't, You should know, you're fucking Greek. What colour are you?
I'm a bit Turkish as well.
Turkish Greek man you are, very brown. So your white guilt should go down because of that. You could be like, I'm not really white. I'm not really. The Joe Rogan did a thing, and that it was edited by a guy that I got into contact with called the Mischief Maker. And the video that's worth people looking up on YouTube is called, it'll be like Joe Rogan, oh fucking hell, here we go. What is it? What do they call it? It's got a really good title, like The Brilliance of Madness or The Madness of Success or something like that. And the whole chat is about how really, in order to excel in any field, you've got to be slightly mad. I mean, we were just chatting about the MMA fighter Rampage Jackson and his behaviour on TV and dry humping women who are interviewing him and that kind of like, but he's an amazing fighter. I mean, what's going to drive you to do great things? Usually it would be pain. Usually it would be some kind of trauma. Why else would you bother? What's the point?
Sacrifice.
If sacrifice comes into it, then yes, that will happen, and that's a very basic human drive. I think that's what we've evolved for, is to sacrifice for a greater cause. We just happen to live in a time where there is no greater cause.
I mean, what I see a lot of, because I do a lot of endurance sports as well. So when I look at these people who are really training for endurance sports, but not getting that. I mean, they're obsessed, and they like being obsessed, and they like winning, but they don't get out of the training. Sort of, I don't want to say it. They don't get big muscles as well, so they're not getting that
validation.
That validation.
So because you look at them and you can't tell.
Yeah.
Right.
And just for someone who's amateur to put that many hours in to complete something, I mean, that's quite incredible, really. When you look at some of the people that I've seen training, doing a 35-hour-a-week job and then training for 20, 25 hours a week and then not getting the cultural validation on top of that.
Well, you've done half marathons. Have you done a full marathon?
I've done a couple of full marathons. I've done a couple of half Ironmans, but not a full Ironman.
So you've done like sprint triathlons, you've done Olympic length triathlons, and you've done fucking half Ironman triathlons.
Yeah.
So you're
not very well.
Well, but it puts you in a position of relative expertise. Certainly to me, and certainly to most people listening to the podcast. When you say a commitment to endurance training, most people will think, oh, you mean doing like 5 1-hour runs a week, so that you can do a 10K in a good time. This is a little bit beyond that.
A little bit, yeah.
So just so people have a sense of perspective, what's the distance for an Olympic that you swim and bike and run?
Ooh, I can't remember. I think it's 1.5k swim.
It is.
And then a 40k cycle and then a 10k run for an Olympic.
So that's just an Olympic, which triathletes consider to be fairly small, don't they?
Yeah, it's more of it's a VO2 max race, I suppose you could put it that way. You go in hell for lever as hard as you can for as long as you can.
Yeah. And the half Ironman, what would be the distances for that?
That is 1.75k swim, a 56-mile cycle, and a half marathon.
And what's a half marathon in miles? Is that
13.2 something miles.
Okay, we just switched from miles to kilometres, which is what Brits do all the time, but it might drive Americans crazy. What's 13 miles in kilometres?
Oh god, I don't even know.
They work in miles, don't they?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I've got no perspective of kilometres.
Fuck them. You should never have left. You had it good with us. Now you've got Trump in. And everybody's in the streets in America saying, oh, please take us back. We love the Queen.
Everyone loves the Queen.
She lives in London, which is in France, I think. I'm not saying all Americans are ignorant of geography. Come on, Will. Come on. The predominant demographic I target is Americans. And I like giving them a hard time.
And they like it as well.
Oh, they love it. Well, most do. But then you do get people who have a little bit of a personality disorder who go berserk when I say anything about America because they feel it's attacking themselves personally. So one of the common traits of cluster B personality disorder is hypersensitivity.
Right. Okay.
And there's a reason why I'm sort of bringing it back to borderline personality disorder and psychopathy.
Okay.
And those personality traits because I eventually want to ask you about Jordan Peterson. Have you seen any of him?
Jordan Peterson?
He's like a conservative philosopher who chats away online about how awful postmodernism is and how it's cultural Marxism.
Canadian?
I think so. He keeps saying bloody. He sounds like an American who's saying it's so bloody damn hard to understand it. I'm like, listen, son, you don't say bloody in the same way that we don't say asshole. So just keep your flipping tongue off our words. But if he's Canadian, does that mean they still have the Queen on their currency?
I'm pretty sure we do, yeah.
Well, then you could say bloody all day.
And bugger.
Does Canadians say bugger?
I don't know, I'd like it. You know when Hugh Grant says bugger in a film? Bugger.
I liked Hugh Grant when he was trying to be a gangster in Mickey Blue Eyes.
I've not seen that.
James Caan was trying to teach him. I can't do it either. He was going, you got to say... Forget about it. And all the T's become D's, like a New York sort of thing.
Okay.
Forget about it. And Hugh Grant sat there going, forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it, kid. What do you want to do, kid? What am I running a freaking hotel over here? Jesus, that caffeine's hit me quite hard. Actually, my face is tingling. I start shouting. Now, well, because people will be upset.
Okay.
Especially people who follow on the Spartan Life Coach. I don't hate weak people. What I really loathe is when people make the world a worse place through selfishness and stupidity. So some of the people who are the victims of childhood trauma or they've been in an emotionally abusive relationship, they come out of that and they go, I'm weak. They identify as weak.
Why?
And, well, it does weaken you. I mean, do you want like a full... So I give you like a proper little breakdown of why that happens.
Should I just tell you what I'm thinking? I always think someone who's gone through something traumatic and come out the other end should probably feel stronger for that.
Yeah, I mean in Hollywood that's how it works. that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
But it's more like the Joker in the Christopher Nolan movie said, that which doesn't kill you makes you stranger. So trauma, like untreated trauma, actually turns people a bit odd, and makes them like sort of antisocial, quite hard to be around. It can make them difficult. That's why you get a lot of veterans, like combat veterans, coming back, and we go, oh, they have PT. Oh, we should discuss Dunkirk, shouldn't we? Which we'll get to. They have PTSD. And then you go, what's wrong with them? Why are they acting like such pricks? Why are they, you know, they're obnoxious now. They were really friendly and upbeat and hopeful, and they've come back and they're mean and they're bitter, and they, you know, they almost like develop something that looks like narcissistic personality disorder. And what they found is that the trauma of combat, for some but not all soldiers, can develop in them our old friend borderline personality disorder.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that's there's some American research I read was saying that something like, well, the research they did, and this could be affirmation bias because they were looking for it, in this particular paper, they found that 80% of soldiers who've been diagnosed with PTSD registered for borderline personality disorder. So why does that happen? Why does trauma not necessarily make us stronger? Trauma will up to a point. It's like working a muscle in the gym, isn't it? So if I do, you know, my squats, my bicep curls, my fucking whatever you want up to a certain point, then it's going to cause me to come back stronger and to grow. If I go past that point, go past the point diminished returns, it actually just breaks me down.
Injured.
Yeah, injured. The body goes into catabolism, the central nervous system shuts down, you can't sleep at night, you can't get an erection, you can't do, you know, you feel depressed, you get like flu symptoms and that if you push further than you're supposed to. So watching the film Dunkirk and thinking about combat stress versus PTSD, it really is a question of saying how much stress is useful before it becomes damaging, and there's a sliding scale. So with the combat stress of people with PTSD who are combat vets who are developing borderline personality disorder, it's actually just gone on for too long, and it's been too much, and it's probably provoking previous trauma from childhood as well. And why do people respond by actually being a bit odd and a bit nasty to the people around them? Is it's kind of like the pain and the suffering that you've endured kind of possesses you, and it goes into the whole system. So when people have suffered narcissistic abuse as opposed to the pressures of combat, there's a term called narcissistic abuse victim syndrome, which is almost like a kind of psychological AIDS. You know, the HIV virus, one of the things that kills you, oh, hang on, let me get this right. Okay, I'm not sure if it's at the HIV phase or when it becomes full-blown AIDS. I think it's when it becomes full-blown AIDS. You lose the capacity to heal. You can no longer repair yourself.
Well, that's because HIV or AIDS, and I don't know which order it's in.
HIV first.
Right, okay. That attacks your white blood cells, doesn't it?
I think it starts to, but
I think be very unscientific students. Really unread version.
Yeah, no, that's us just going, yeah, something to do with like a white blood cell.
A cell or something?
Something like, once you've gone full-blown AIDS, your body can't heal itself anymore. So what kills you with AIDS is like
a
cold, which then becomes pneumonia, and then you're dead. So there's a psychological version of that where the pain that you've experienced stops you from having any, it's like no psychological skin, no boundaries, no resilience to anything, and you lose the ability to look after yourself. You lose the capacity to self-care. Now, why that happens would take probably about 15 minutes of fairly lengthy explanation and probably wouldn't be very entertaining listening. But it's down to the mechanism of how narcissistic abuse takes place, and how narcissistic abuse, one of the big things is gaslighting and making you doubt your own sanity. And it basically makes you hate yourself. You don't end up hating the abuser, you end up hating yourself. And that's the abuser's agenda.
Because you can't beat them.
Because you can't stand up for yourself, and because they're torturing you, really. They're just twisting your own insecurities back on themselves and twisting everything back around, so you're totally confused. You go into a sort of like a learned helplessness, masochistic submission, except I guess if it was truly masochistic, you'd be enjoying it. You know, you just go into this helplessness, self-abandonment, and you're just like, okay, do whatever you want to me because I don't care about myself anymore. And that's what breaks your spirit. Sometimes when people go to war, their spirits get broken by it, because Because we're not really looking at the emotional literacy of the soldiers we're sending over. We're saying, okay, if you can do 50 push-ups and run 15 miles with a backpack and shoot straight, then you're ready for war. Well, actually, they need to be checked first to see if they have not experienced childhood trauma, because childhood trauma can get kicked off in a bad way by the experience of combat. Just of being in a war zone, maybe no shots fired, but just going through your basic training and going to a combat zone, I believe can give you PTSD if you're in a certain psychological space.
So what do those people mainly do then to try and make themselves feel better?
What the combat vets?
Other than counselling? No, just someone like you speaking, people who are suffering narcissistic personality abuse.
They do, well, I'll tell you what they actually do.
Do they seek validation from other people?
Not really, no. They want it. They're craving validation from other people, but they don't feel they deserve it, so they don't really ask for it. What they will try and do when it's bad, when it's like twisted round to a malignant borderline personality disorder, which actually can start to look a lot like narcissism, they actually become addicted to attention. And they become addicted to attention by sympathy. So they're always the biggest victim in the room, and their pain, like, you just don't understand my pain, man. You weren't there, man. They were in the trees. That's real. That's a borderline perspective which says, fuck you. What film was that from? You weren't there. Was it Born on the 4th of July?
I don't think I've seen it. I think I've seen someone take the piss out of it in The Big Lebowski, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually seen the actual film.
It's taken the piss out of in different places, but this idea of like a Vietnam vet screaming at everybody, you can't understand my pain, you weren't there, that actually is a personality disordered stance. I'm not saying everybody who says that has a personality disorder. I'm saying borderline personality disorder is that stance. You weren't there. You know, my pain is unique and special, and you'll never understand my pain. And if you think about it, that's incredibly fucking arrogant. And in the early days of me doing life coaching, I didn't realise that I had a lot of people with borderline personality disorder in front of me, and was having like full-on arguments with them where they'd go, you don't understand. And I'd be like, how fucking dare you presume to know what my subjective experience is? Well, that's not what I meant. But that's what you're saying. If you say you can't understand my pain, you're saying that your experience is unique and nobody else has ever experienced that before. How do you fucking know what I've experienced? Do you know what I mean? It becomes, so it's narcissism. It's like right next door to narcissism. Narcissism is love me, love me, love me. I'm the best. I'm the most special thing because I'm me. The borderline personality position is a little bit different. It's like not love me, but give me all the sympathy in the world. Not because I'm amazing, but because my pain is unique and special.
So someone who's in a narcissistic relationship, the narcissist causes their partner to get some type of personality disorder if it's not
treated.
I was going to use an English phrase, but I didn't think anyone would really understand. If it's not nipped in the bud.
It does need nipping in the bud, yeah. Nip that in the bud, and then pull yourself together.
And then have a cup of tea.
And then have a cup of tea.
And leave.
You can end up with very personality disorder. Like, I thought for a while that I actually had borderline personality disorder. And I think I developed 70 to 80% of the traits of somebody with full-blown borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
Drug use, promiscuous, unsafe sex, fighting with people, getting the shit kicked out of me after fighting with people, so on and so forth, and so on, whatever you want. And I think I did get to that place. So I deeply sympathise with the feeling that people with borderline personality disorder have, which is they just find themselves completely unacceptable. Those same combat veterans who come back, who are just full of pain and anxiety and self-loathing, it leaks out, and they're like, I hate myself, I'm an awful person, I know, I'm going to do awful things to my friends and family so that I prove that I'm an awful person. And then what happens, which is fucking spooky, is if you live with somebody who has PTSD, you develop PTSD.
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah. So what they're doing in some places in America now, because as I understand it, the research is further on than it is in the UK, and the development of cures and solutions is further on, as they treat the whole unit, they treat the whole family. They're going, okay, daddy's come home from war, mummy's come home from war, let's get husband, wife, kids, let's get everybody in. and we're gonna have to coach you all together. Because they found that, like, sorry, I didn't answer your question before. What do people do when they come out of abusive relationships or they come back from war, when they are developing borderline personality disorder and PTSD traits?
I think I was more is there a trait other than seeking help? Is there a trait that a lot of people prescribe to? Do they go and, I don't know, train? Do they go and eat? Do they overeat? Do they go and do something impulsive? And do they do it to the nth degree? So they don't just do it like 10%. They do it 100%, and they're fucking all in.
They try and self-regulate the negative emotions. So the emotions are out of whack. This actually becomes a biological problem where the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal gland stop talking to each other in the way that they should. You start overreacting to the smallest thing because your adrenaline levels are spiking all the time. And what they do is like self-comforting behavior. So in a household where one person is a combat veteran, mum comes back from the war zone. If you use the example of female veterans, what they found in the research that I was reading is men whose wives have PTSD suffer more. Their symptoms become worse than women, generally. That was the research that I read.
Okay.
So mummy comes back from war, wife comes back from war, PTSD is there. Then daddy starts to develop symptoms. Now he's gambling online. Now he's drinking more. Now he's snorting lines of coke and watching porn until 5 o'clock in the morning, and he loses his job. The kids are now playing more video games. They're zoning out on the internet more. They're running off and smoking weed behind the school sheds more. You know, like it seeps into the whole family unit.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to deal with what? Battle stress. Everybody's trying to deal with the stress, the emotional dysregulation. So it becomes contagious.
Because I've heard something about what I was reading it, because it was an article in the paper, so I don't know how much truth was in it. It wasn't an actual peer review. Oh, it's a peer review?
Peer reviewed published
journal.
paper.
Yeah, it was just a normal paper.
Yeah.
And they were saying about kids with anorexia and other children in the family developing anorexia as well.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what you were saying, that it's I think anorexia is just being unable to validate yourself, isn't it? You can't look at yourself without seeing something less.
No, you've given a really, really good example there, and this is interesting, and this is like, I can critique psychological methods all day long, and I enjoy doing it because I want to do it because I think it keeps the field honest, because I really don't see it as an honest field of study right now. That is a prime example of the logical fallacy of cum hoc, ergo propter hoc. So you have daughter number 1 is 16 and she develops anorexia, and then daughter number 2 who's 12, or boy, it's more, anorexia occurs more in girls. The equivalent for men is usually bigorexia. Do you know what bigorexia is?
Muscles.
That's what I've got. I'll never be fucking big enough, lad.
Just need to grow.
I just want to see me traps touch me ears, lad. That's all I want. I don't want to be able to move or wipe me bum or get out the car without groaning loud. Actually, I'm already there, aren't I? Fucking hell. Like groaning in pain just to get off the couch. So they'll go, okay, so what's happening here? Oh, anorexia is spreading. And what they might be missing is the context in which the anorexia is taking place. Because I'm sort of like studied, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, other people have called me an expert in narcissistic personality disorder. Actually, there is an extremely high prevalence for young girls who develop anorexia. It's because they have a highly narcissistic father who has a tendency to hypersexualize women. Not always. So people listening to this, if they're like, my daughter's got anorexia, I'm not fucking narcissistic. Not always, but there is research that indicates it's going that way. So of course daughter number 2 is going to develop it. She didn't catch it like a virus from her sister, though she might have done.
Yeah.
That can happen. It's actually just that she's raised in the same psychological context and the same symptoms develop. When it does get caught like a virus, and this is an extremely dangerous effect amongst teenage girls, is teenage girls, more so than boys, are extremely conformist. They'll conform with the group.
Okay.
We've discussed this before. I was in that play, The Crucible.
Oh, yeah.
Well, on one level, it's like a study of what happened with the McCarthy witch hunt trying to drive out communists. But on another level, it's actually just a look into group hysteria, the whole group hysteria, and how an idea can spread like a virus in a community. But particularly group hysteria amongst adolescent females, and it's based on real cases.
Okay.
Where adolescent girls convinced each other en masse that they had seen and heard things that they definitely hadn't seen and heard, like they've been suckling on the devil's teats at night. And serious, like that's a real thing that people alleged in New England back in the day. And then, you know, people were accused of witchery and they were tortured, and then eventually they had their necks stretched for it. Where I noticed this was when I was working in the schools. I'd go in the school and I'd be like, oh, I need to build rapport with these teenagers. What do teenagers care about? They care about being cool. They care about their personal identity. They're obsessed with, like, are you an emo? No, I'm a goth. Well, I like hip hop. Well, I like fucking rock music, and I'm this and I'm that. So I'd be like, okay, just so I get to know who all you guys are, make me a name card and put it at the front of your desk. And on that name card, you're going to fill it out however you want, whatever colours you want, and you're going to write the type of music you like and 3 interests you have, and I don't know, one of your major goals in life.
Yeah.
It just gives them something to do. It lets me see what their fucking names are.
Yeah.
You know, I'm stood in the middle of the seminar, it helps I can see their names. But it would also give me an insight into who they were, and I'd give them like 5-10 minutes to make these name cards for themselves. And they always love doing it because the teenagers want to tell you who they are. And if you are a parent with an unruly teenager, give them that space to just be like, this is what I'm into and this is what I'm about. It's going to sound pretty pointless to you, but to them it's the whole universe.
world.
It's their world.
Yeah.
And that's how I, you know, when I controlled adolescence, when it worked, it was all on the basis of what's cool and who's cool and am I the coolest person in the room. If I'm not the coolest person in the room, I don't know that I can actually, you know, because I'm determining what's cool and what isn't. So
I do think, sorry to cut you off, though, it's easier to be the coolest person in the room in England because we place so much importance on being funny.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure that goes to a wider world. I don't think.
I'm not sure. I think I don't know whether
you can be completely uncool, look completely uncool, but if you're really funny.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, cool. Maybe cool in that context means something slightly different to us. Then, yeah. Yeah. It's not cool like you're the Fonz with a pair of sunglasses on. You're just you're the person who's dictating the social standards in the room. Yeah. You're the person giving out nicknames. You're the person who's saying that's funny and that's appropriate behaviour, or that's not funny, that's not cool, don't do that.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is what I noticed across all the schools I went to, girls between the age of 14 and 18, they would copy the colours, like they would have a blank piece of paper and they'd fold it up to make their own name card. And you know, 90% of them would obsess over making sure that they were conforming with whatever the alpha female was doing. So if she wrote her 3 favourite types of music on the left of her name, and her name was in block capitals in pink, they would write that. They would absolutely fucking conform. So there is like, you know, anorexia can spread as an idea in the same way that suicide can dangerously spread as an idea.
Well, I know suicide can definitely spread an idea because you have suicide hotspots, don't you, in the UK?
We had them in Wales about 10 years ago. Yeah,
and the problem is that's why the media isn't allowed to report on suicides anymore, are they? Because then other people who are thinking about it realise where they can go and do it. See, what I always think about suicides as well, I never understand why people pick painful ways to do it. So, like, to me, if you were going to do it, why can't you just take 1 million sleeping pills and get in the bath? Why do people want to jump in front of trains or jump off a hill?
Why would you get in the fucking bath if you're taking sleeping pills?
Wouldn't that just make you fall asleep and then you'd drown?
Oh, is that what you're thinking, to drown in the bath?
Because that wouldn't hurt, would it? Because you'd be asleep.
Okay, I'll tell you what I used to tell other people when they're talking about suicide. I know people who've been who tried to kill themselves with sleeping pills and it didn't work, and it's fucking agony if they bring you back.
Oh, is it?
It's extremely painful. Like, your stomach's not going to work possibly ever again properly. They've got to gouge that shit out of your stomach and out of your intestines. If you drown but don't drown fully and you're caught, or you just survive somehow, because people can. You know, we don't really understand to the nth degree why some people can survive certain levels of trauma. There's examples out there of people being drowned for an hour and not having total brain death. If you partially drown and they bring you back round, you could break part of your brain. and then you will poop into a bag for the rest of your life. And
that wouldn't be great.
No, that would suck as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's when people are looking at it as an option, you know, one justification for the more violent methods is they're pretty definitive. Like if you jump in front of a train, you probably, well, people have survived that as well. But there was a dude in America who shot himself in the head with a double barrel shotgun. Survived.
Shouldn't laugh.
Well, it's a long time ago that it happened, but he actually survived. And he survived, and then he came round and he'd spoken to God, and God had given him a mission, and he was much, much happier. I'm not saying that people should do that.
No, just try it out.
I watched Inception again recently, and did you like? I've seen it 3 times now. How many times have you seen that?
Which one's Inception again?
Leonardo DiCaprio, 5 Levels of Dreaming.
Oh,
I'm going to run through the dreams.
Once or twice.
You've seen it once or twice?
Yeah.
There's a really, really quite a creepy idea in the middle of it. It's actually quite a dangerous idea, and I wonder if Nolan re-edited it to not enforce it too much, which is the idea that the reality that we're living in is a dream, and the only way out is to kill yourself. That's what the main character is called Cobb.
Yep.
His wife is called Mal. She's the French lady.
Yeah.
The entire time in the film, she is just running around trying to kill herself to wake up. But Cobb put that idea in her head. He put the idea in her. That's the point of Inception. That's putting ideas in people's heads. This is all a dream, and you must kill yourself to wake up. There's actually a I'm
trying to remember the film, and I can't remember that bit of it.
Watch it again. What I think happened is. Where we see an edit where that has been downplayed, because it's a really fucking dangerous idea. Like if you put that out there with enough people who are impressionable, because there is research coming out that suggests that we're living in a virtual reality. Have you read that stuff?
I've read the again, not sort of peer review stuff, but I've read a few articles about Elon Musk.
Elon Musk,
overwhelmingly convinced.
Yeah,
I think I read it in The Economist actually.
Yeah.
A weird place to read it. But he's convinced that we're in the Matrix style system right now, but isn't his argument that if we think it's possible, it must be possible, so that's what is happening, which just seems like a weak argument.
Yeah, you dreamt it, so it's whoever smelt it dealt it. I'm not sure this is how logic works. I think it's not just him. There's people have put billions of dollars into figuring this out, and what they're saying is that statistically, if you look at the way artificial intelligence is going now, and the acceleration that we're likely to see in the next 15 years, and it will be a hell of an acceleration, it just becomes more and more probable that this actually is a virtual reality.
Okay.
I wouldn't dwell on it too long because it will pickle your brain.
Yeah, it will.
I gave it an hour or so, and after the hour I was like, yeah, it's high.
But that now.
Well, but I agreed with him. I was like, actually, the probability, if you think if you don't think of time as being, if you think of time as moving it as an arrow that goes from front to back, from past to present to future, it's kind of hard to get your head around it. If you think of time as an the thing that is continuously unfolding fractally, then this is where I got to, and then I was like, I need to stop now. And what happened? What happens in the past ripples into the future. It starts to make sense that what happens in the future ripples back into the past. Yes, it does become more and more likely that this is a virtual reality.
I mean, all I can think about now is I can't remember the guy's name. He's a physicist. He's on the TV quite a lot in England, and he used to be in a rock group, and I can't remember his name.
Oh,
but I saw a lecture.
A rock group, Queen.
No.
The physicist who's in Queen.
No, another physicist, and I can't remember his name, and it's very annoying right now. But there's a good couple of lectures you can watch on YouTube, and he talks about time as being a circle.
Yeah.
And actually, no, he doesn't say a circle, a sphere. And then obviously that's where I completely lose him, because I don't understand anything about physics or what he's talking about.
You don't need to understand physics. We just need. But
it just gets really, really interesting.
We just need to give you acid.
Acid.
Yeah.
What, open the third eye?
Yeah, but it rips it open. Acid is not gentle. You know, I took acid round here. Yeah, I told you that, didn't I? Yeah. Round Port Sunlight in Bevington, which was an extremely frightening experience. So Brian Cox.
Brian Cox, yeah.
Was he in a rock group?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think he had a number 1 as well.
I'm sorry, I have to open Wikipedia. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I can't remember now.
No, if you take, and I think this is quite common. If you take acid, your brain tends to focus on certain subjects, or it certainly did in my case. One is the nature of God, the other is the nature of time, and another one that your brain will keep coming back to is like language and symbols. Like, why do we have language? Who are we talking to? What are we talking for? And acid's really annoying. So it's like it's like having a really bullying friend in the room who's obsessed with one idea, who just keeps asking you the same question over and over again.
See, someone described taking acid to me as the most terrifying fairground ride you've ever gone on.
Yeah.
But if you want to get off, you can't.
It's fucking horrendous. If you're having a bad one, the last one I had was really bad, and I was like, if I ever survive this, I'm never doing this ever again. I drank a bottle and a half of red wine, smoked some skunk. I was young, like 18, and then took acid. And God, that was fucking horrendous. It was horrendous. Me and the girl I was with at the time, we just got eaten alive slowly by demons for 8 hours. It was in Birmingham. The walls disintegrated. We had this group hallucination. And we were just being like these weird, grey, spiralling, wispy, demonic entities were just going all over us and eating us. And we never died. He was in D-Ream and Dare, Brian Cox.
Was he?
I didn't know that, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. But yeah, it does focus the mind on the nature of time, and it does kind of expand it. I mean, time, as we talk about it, is a social construct.
Well, everyone keeps saying whenever I watch a lecture or listen to a few podcasts, everyone describes time as a concept, which makes no sense to me. How can it be a concept? I don't think that's something we can probably explain now, but the idea.
Jesus, should we do a podcast called "Is Time Real or Is It a Concept"? I think like I'll send you some links to Terence McKenna talks, and I think his thing was DMT rather than acid. But he was like, the thing that you understand after you've taken psychedelics is we literally, not figuratively, live inside of linguistic concepts.
Yeah, but then, Churchill and people like Stephen Fry have said that since they finished university, haven't they? It's very, very, very important the way you understand language and the way language is interpreted.
I've never heard Churchill or Stephen Fry say that. What do you know what Churchill said?
I can't remember. No, I've
something to do with language.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was always he's obviously very expressive, and he used a lot of when he was writing about history.
Yeah,
he was quite poetic, wasn't he?
Right.
Rather than necessarily being factual. Yeah. But he was very intensely concerned with what each word meant and how it fit into a sentence. And then I've heard Stephen Fry talk about what's the term for Russian languages and Balkan languages? Slavic languages. The language leads itself to being what's the word? To being, they call it the motherland,
right?
About being intense about where they're from, and
it's actually encoded in the language.
Yeah,
I've never heard that. But yes, they flipping are. Jesus.
I find that intensely interesting.
I've not been around enough Russians to be able to say, but I can say that people from the Balkans, from Macedonia, from Bosnia, from Croatia, from Serbia, there's an attachment to something to do with psychology and geography that we just don't have here.
Yeah, real attachment.
Yeah, real attachment, and even to the point of being able to say that people from there generally seem to be happier and more content and more connected when they are there.
Yeah.
Rather than being like they don't do well outside of there. The only other nationality that I've noticed where that's the same as Thailand.
Right. Okay.
Thai people outside of Thai. Well, generally speaking, Thai people don't en masse immigrate. And I'm not going to take us back to immigration in the same way that Chinese people would. And it's a very, very nationalistic culture there, extremely nationalistic, and they're very attached. I feel, I can't say for sure, but they seem to be very attached to the land itself. Like, this is our land and this is where we belong.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way about England. It's all right here. Portugal's also nice, bit hotter.
Yeah.
And Spain's all right too.
Spain's all right. I do like Spain. There's nothing like eating in Spain. I love eating in Spain. I love the way people eat in Spain. I love it that they just go, I know it's 9 o'clock. I'm not going to work. I'm having a coffee. Mm-hmm. This is how life should be. I'm going to have my coffee for half an hour. I'll go to work for 3 or 4 hours. Then I'll have lunch. And I won't have lunch like we do here. I won't grab a sandwich. I'll go out and I'll get lunch. Lovely. Everyone should live like that.
And look at their fucking economy. Listen, misery makes money.
We're all much happier.
And there's psychological research that backs that up. People who are miserable and depressed and angry, people like me, were more productive.
And we live in colder places.
Yeah, and generally speaking, live in colder places.
See, does that have something to do with vitamin E?
I have no idea. I do think there is a usefulness to being edgy if you're trying to get things done, but life shouldn't be about just getting things done. It should be about also just being happy and being in the moment.
I love that story that they tell. I mean, if you go on to take any type of social science or politics or economics, normally some lecturer in the first 2 or 3 months of you being at university will tell you that story about the lake. The rich businessman goes to a lake and sees the fisherman and says to the fisherman, for anyone who doesn't know the story, says to the fisherman, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, why are you asleep? And he says, well, I've caught my fish for the day. I'm going to have a sleep and relax for the rest of the day. And he said, well, if you stayed up until 8 o'clock tonight and you do that for a week, you'll catch so many more fish that you could sell at the market as well. And if you do that for a year, you'll be able to take another person on. And when you take the other person on, you can buy another boat. And when you buy the other boat, you'll be able to outfish the other fishermen in your lake. You'll be able to buy their businesses. And you work and work and work and work 20, 30 years. And then you'll be able to retire and sit next to a tree and go to sleep.
Yeah.
I love that story. It's so simplistic, but I love it.
It's a cool story. I first heard it as like a Sufi story. Similar thing. Just like a guy sat by, falling asleep under a tree, and dude comes on and says, why are you doing this when you could be doing this instead, so that you can do this in the end? That's part of our fabrication of time. Like our version of capitalism that we have now, and the way that culture is going now, I think is rooted in our concepts of time, and it's rooted in biblical concepts of time.
I do find it, biblical concepts, and I do find it quite interesting that there are major people that seem to be super drawn to going to join things like ISIS. Like that gives them more meaning than where they're living now. Even though it's so much safer here.
Well, safety isn't really generally speaking in psychology, if somebody has a problem and they can't get that problem to go away, I start looking for where the safety is, and I'll go, why? What? The unconscious obviously doesn't feel safe. If you've had different treatments for this problem, something about it is essentially making you feel safe. And then I would always say, look for where the safety is, because it's the primal unconscious drive. However, there is a caveat to that, which is it seems to be the case that too much safety also doesn't work for us. Now, if you use like an evolutionary psychology perspective, that would make sense.
Too much safety isn't, like, so we're not.
Well,
big confused by that.
Yeah, right. So, okay. Of any mental health problem, what do you have one, or do you see like a tendency in yourself? Do you see like a tendency towards anxiety or depression, or is there anything that you tend towards?
Probably I've got a little bit of weird OCD.
OCD. And what's your OCD around?
Mainly food and things like the plug there. I really want to switch that off.
Even though it's
attached, it's just I can see the red bit on top,
and that's freaking you out.
If it wasn't red, it wouldn't be bothering me.
Okay. And do you see any? What's the OCD around food? Is it the way it's prepped, or what is it?
I think that food should complement each other.
Right.
So to me, I can't stand it when people get food and they eat it separately. So they'll eat all their veg, then they'll eat all their meat, and then, or if you go for, you got a lovely sauce with your fish, but you ask for it on the side, and it's meant to complement each other. I'm working up now. Eat it together.
Yeah. Don't eat it separate, eat it together.
Yeah.
So that kind of...
And eating properly as well. Sorry, I can't stand it when people can't use their knife and fork properly.
Right.
Makes me want to kill them.
What, when they hold their knife
out in hand like
it's a pencil. Oh, the upside down dagger move.
God, or they hold the knife and fork in the wrong hand. Or I think it's all right. This is in my mind. It's all right to eat a curry with bread and just your fork. I'm happy with that because, as far as I'm aware, you should be using your bread as a sort of spoon anyway, and it's complementing each other.
Or the rice.
Yeah. But when people just dig at food, and there's actually one of my friends who I can't sit opposite when we eat. I have to sit beside them on the other side of the table because at some point in the future I will stab them through the throat if they keep eating like that.
Well, that's not good.
No.
I mean, that wouldn't be a happy ending for anybody. But that OCD, that seemingly meaningless thing, is there because that's the way we've evolved to be. So people, they'll say anxiety is uncomfortable and it's bad and it shouldn't be there. OCD is bad and it shouldn't be there. Well, those people who obsessed over details are the ones who survived. Those people, this includes depression. I haven't figured it out yet, but depression must have a purpose. Everything has a fucking purpose. That which doesn't have a purpose has already died, because we are ancient creatures. We're ancient animals.
Yeah.
We think of ourselves as this modern thing, like 10,000 years old or 20,000 years. We're ancient animals. So if you think of in dinosaur times, you've got a group of dinosaurs that are herbivores, and they're like massive cows with horns, and they're chewing the grass. Yeah. And then the T-Rex comes along, and it goes, "Rah, I'm a T-Rex, and I'm going to eat his
with his little arms,
with his tiny arms." And then everybody runs. Well, who gets eaten? The ones at the back of the pack. Okay, now that will most likely be the old or the injured. It will also be the people who the dinosaurs that do not respond to danger quickly. So everybody over millions of years, every entity over millions of years, you went, "Oh fuck, danger, run away. Oh fuck, danger, run away." We survived. Our genes survived. All the ones who are like, "Chill out, dudes. Rah, my face has been eaten. Oh Jesus." Imagine that, a dinosaur going, "Oh Jesus, he's not even been born yet, but I still call out for him. My face is devoured." They all died. So it's got to be there for a reason. It's got to be it's got to be in place for a reason. The OCD, like over attention to detail, has to have a purpose. You see, there's a book of Chinese proverbs next to the.
Yeah.
So in the southern Chinese population. And in the Cantonese people, there is research that indicates that that's where OCD is at its worst in the world.
Okay.
And typically, like with my Chinese friends, you'll see them with like DVD collections, putting it in a certain order. They'll also be obsessed with, there's an obsession with gambling. Mm-hmm. That's all of them. All of them. I mean, and an obsession with tiny little bits and pieces of detail to thing. And I can see when they go into like, you met Mandik, when he goes into a certain state of mind, he likes to have all of his attention focused on some little detail. And it's like this obsessive compulsive thing, which if you take it out of place, he goes flipping berserk.
Yeah, I can see that, but I think you can find workarounds. I mean, one of the workarounds I found straight away is I used to do that thing with CDs and DVDs and have them in alphabetical order, but not just alphabetical order by the name of the film, and have them by the production company, whether it's Columbia, Universal, whatever, they'd all be standing in order, and I knew exactly if someone had moved it because just by walking in the room. Yeah. But what I found is if I actually don't start anything like that, nothing like that bothers me.
If you don't start,
if I start doing it and I make it a thing, then it becomes a thing in my brain.
Yeah, you know, your grandfather suffered terribly with OCD.
Did he?
Yep. Yeah, anxiety and OCD as well. Can you think of an evolutionary advantage to being obsessed with details?
I suppose your house might be a bit safer, or your home, or your dwelling, or wherever you were.
Yeah, less of a chance of eating poison stuff. I always think of, you know, there's like little bits, or you might survive longer. You might notice the tracks of an animal that otherwise you wouldn't have noticed, or the tracks of a predator, or the poop of a predator that you otherwise wouldn't have noticed. So attention to detail is an evolutionary advantage. The ability to run away quickly is an evolutionary advantage. OCD is like an over manifestation of that evolutionary advantage, which is attention to detail, or anxiety attacks is the overuse of being able to run away quickly. Depression, I don't know what that is, but it must serve a purpose.
It was dreadful, when you said the people who were back there, the ones that would be picked off. Mm-hmm. In my brain went to me straight away, well, that wouldn't be you. I felt dreadful. I was like, don't think like that. That's a dreadful thing.
Well, that's the way evolution works. It's not it's not kind. They're not communists, these dinosaurs. No, wait for the comrades at the back. The fastest run away, the fittiest.
Sprint. Just going back to one thing I was thinking when we were talking about school, that I always thought it's a massive overgeneralization as well, but I always thought watching girls interact almost seemed a bit like psychological torture, and just from experience, sisters and cousins and whatever, watching them, what they go through, whereas we just get hit and then it's over. You haven't got to go and think about it.
No,
it's fine. It's sorted then and done. Whereas these girls seem to just torture each other.
Yeah.
And I've got friends now in school that say it's got much worse, because whereas we used to be able to go home and get away from, because torture might only be for a week or 2 weeks, they've fallen out with a group or they've done something that, like you say, annoyed the alpha. They get home and they get away from it.
Yeah.
Whereas my friends, they're teachers now, saying these girls are going home, but they're being tortured on Facebook and social media as well, so they just can't get away from it.
It's driven some suicides recently, hasn't it? There's social media bullying. I think there was a couple of girls in the UK a few weeks ago had hanged themselves just because of social media bullying. No, that environment. I mean, this is something that really should be addressed in the schools. And if you teach kids that they're doing it and that they why, if you shame them for doing it, they're just going to keep doing it. But if you show them why they're doing it and why it's necessary to do it, but that they need to be conscientious in the way they're doing it, you can stop it. That's the environment where a young lady is learning what power she has and what boundaries she is going to develop for the rest of her life. And if she is going to defend herself psychologically and emotionally, that will be the environment in which she sharpens her claws. So it's a very, very vulnerable, very, very impressionable age for boys and for girls. They do need a lot of attention, I think, between the age of 14 and 21 to keep them on the right path. To be like, okay, you're going to want to punch your friend's face in every once in a while, so let's talk about that. And let's not just, if you just make it like, you can't punch your friend in the face, why not? Because I fucking said so. That's not going to help anybody. It just drives it underground. Similarly, if you say you can't emotionally bully the weakest girl in the group, you're not really giving a reason why. But if you give a reason why and you explain it, be like, look, you're going to naturally feel an impulse to do this. We've got to control it because words hurt and because it's not nice and because you can actually make somebody have a really unpleasant life just through what you're doing here. You can teach kids like empathy and compassion and conscientiousness, that type of thing. You'd actually fix that problem. They need to employ me as the education minister ASAP.
That'd be excellent.
Drugs.
Tiny amounts of LSD.
Yeah, drugs for everybody. I've given your child DMT. Don't panic, madam. We're just popping open her third eye so she won't listen to your gibberish anymore. Hello, Mama. Time is a meaningless concept. Your rules are nonsense. I'm not a domesticated primate.
Stop them from punishing each other.
Well, you see, you couldn't do that because then nobody would pay taxes anymore. The whole system would fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I was reading as well about Dutch schools is the enforcement of at least 2.5 hours of physical activity during the day as well.
Really? 2.5 hours?
Just seems to make sense to me.
Good Lord, that's an awful long time. Before I was talking about, I'll just wrap the Jordan Peterson thing.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. This conservative philosophy, very, very popular on YouTube.
Okay.
You like a bit of postmodernism and social constructionism.
I don't understand it.
But you appreciate.
I read about it because I don't understand it.
But you appreciate it.
Yeah.
So do I. So he's very, very popular, and he talks all posh and intellectual and that, right? But what he's doing is he's conflating postmodern thought with social justice warrior, online blogging tits who are jabbering nonsense.
Is he the social justice warrior?
No, he's a lecturer in I think either philosophy or politics. He's really intelligent. He's a bright guy.
Yeah.
And the talks are good, and it's a debate that should be happening because we do have a problem at the moment. Like this whole social justice warrior thing is just way out of hand. But he was talking about borderline personality disorder. Now, he hasn't come right out and said it yet, and I can see why, because he'll get dogpiled if he ever does. But a lot of your screeching, hysterical, total overreactive, really unhelpful word policing and thought policing that goes on amongst the social justice warrior community, it's actually people with borderline personality disorder. No, it really is. And they're the most within any group, because they try and hijack my stuff online, so I have just to block them all the time.
Yeah.
They push themselves to the front of the crowd and they scream the loudest and they make the most bizarre demands and the most extreme demands, and they'll derail rational debate. Okay. And I think this guy has realized, oh, there's something called borderline personality disorder. It makes people act in strange ways. It's kind of like an emotional infantilizing disorder. This is a good way of describing why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing. He's very much against, have you heard of cultural Marxism?
Possibly.
We spoke about something that pertained to it a couple of podcasts ago. It's actually really it's a conservative thinker's conspiracy theory, and it's the idea that there is an agenda called cultural Marxism that is at play, that is trying to make everything equal. This is the place that participation awards come from. Cultural Marxism. You're not better than me, comrade.
I hate that.
We're all the same. Doesn't matter, you can do a 100-meter sprint faster than me. We must be the same.
Yeah.
And I agree with the conservative thinkers on this. It's an absolute perversion. It makes the world a worse place. But that's not what postmodernism is. That's not what an appreciation of social constructionism is. That's just what some people who are probably not very mentally well themselves have hijacked, and they've gone, postmodernist theory says this, and it's like, well, slow down a second. No, it doesn't. I've had arguments, or not recently, but years ago when I would bother, which I don't now, with people online who claim to be feminists, and I'll be like, so let's show me your argument. And I'm like, where did you get this from? Which feminist author stated all the things that you've just said to me? No, I'm just telling you that's what feminism is. And I'm like, I actually studied feminism in a fairly good university with a fairly good lecturer, and that doesn't sound like anything. Obviously, feminism is a huge academic feminism. It covers a wide range of perspectives.
Yeah,
a huge, right the way from any penetrative sex between a man and a woman is rape. Like at one end of the scale to, it's multicolored. There's loads of different variations of it. But I have arguments, or used to, thrown at me, and I'll be like, who is this? Which academic are you getting this from? No, it's my feminism. And I'm like, you don't get to fucking make shit up and then call it feminism. So when I talk to people online now, they're like, oh, these fucking feminists. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. They're just idiots. Who are saying they're postmodernists. They're saying that they're this and that and the other thing. They're just posturing nincompoops. They've never read a book. And they don't know how to conduct a debate, and they don't know how to present a case. So their academic validity, their intellectual validity, for me, is zero. So why take them seriously? So Jordan Peterson is kind of, I'll send you some links. He's railing against postmodernism and this cultural Marxism. And he's saying postmodernists and social constructionists have created the social justice warriors.
So, does he ever give an explanation of what he thinks postmodernism is?
No,
because I've seen so many and read so many different, very intelligent people have completely different ideas. And this is what baffles me about post-structuralism and postmodernism is that there doesn't seem to be one single definition. The closest I can find of an agreement between academics is that ideology and what's the other term? Basically, your personality and your body just comes from your single experiences.
Right.
That's the closest thing I can come to a consensus for it. But I don't even know if that's right.
Again, it would depend on the school, and it would depend on the philosopher, and it would depend on the writer as to what it is. It's become this. It's a huge umbrella term, for multiple schools of philosophy. But yeah, I mean, basically, it's kind of post-ideological. It's saying, well, let's look at where these ideas come from, and let's look at the social constructs, and let's look at the presuppositions. And yes, some people who are famous postmodern thinkers and writers, they go a bit far with it.
Because it seems to do away with discourse, and discourse has always made quite a lot of sense to me.
It shouldn't do. Like, social constructionists are very into, well, as I was taught it, discourse analysis, actually reviewing what people are saying and why they're saying it and what the presuppositions are. I liked all that. I was like, let's get behind the mask. Let's get behind, what your position is and what presuppositions it's based on. It's not a very popular view nowadays, but I had it said to me quite convincingly that gender is a social construct. Not sex, not biological sex, but gender. Our ideas of...
Yeah, it depends. You can read Judith Butler, or you could read Charmer, or you could read a multitude of different people on different genders, and then a lot of people will say there's no gender, a lot of people will say there's 40 different genders, a lot of people will say it's just male and female, a lot of people intrinsically think the body has got something to do with your gender, but there's other people that say it doesn't. It's for, it's a huge...
Yeah, it's huge. It's absolutely huge, but my perspective of that is we should have that debate rather than just going, this is what boys do, this is what girls do, and it's locked in place. Why do the boundaries have to be so tough? Why can't it be a little bit looser than that? Why do people have to get... What is the hysteria around controlling other people's actions? And that, again, is another type of personality disorder. Why would you become hysterical because two gay men are having sex in a house over the road over there? You can't see them, you can't hear them, but you know that that's happening. Why would you become hysterical? Why would you become violent? Why would you want to go out of your way to stop them from doing that? That's disturbing. So when it starts to become like, we're going to stop other people from doing what it is that they want to do, that's where I would sort of be like, well, why? Now, I'm not saying anybody can do anything at any time. I hate moral relativism. I loathe moral relativism. I think it's absolute poison. To the extent that cultural Marxism, I don't believe it exists in the way that it's described, but something like that starts to occur. Again, it's poison. It's absolute fucking poison. But it's also poison to say to people, this is the way you were born, this is the box you go in, and you don't get to come out of that box.
But that's why I always quite liked discourse analysis, because it seemed to try to give meaning to why people fit into those boxes, and seemed to always explain how we understand or how we interpret what someone else is doing, and, how they speak and where they're from. But anything down to their accent, gives you a certain idea of what they're about before you even actually listen to them for a certain amount of time. That's why I always really like discourse analysis, and that's why I've always tried to understand post-structuralism and postmodernism, but I've never quite got there, because I can't grasp it. I can't grasp how you individually have complete power over who you are, and there's nothing coming in from the outside.
Was that what your understanding of postmodernism was? Is that there is no external reality, we're just ascribing meaning.
Yeah.
At that point, I think if it's taken to that extent, then it's less useful. So
it just makes no sense to me, because you could go as far. I always thought with what's the how does someone put it? That's not a curtain.
Yeah.
That's just what I've been told the curtain is.
Yeah. That's reasonable.
If you just get anything, you can push it and push it and push it and push it and push it.
You need to take psychedelics.
Right? When you say actually that curtain doesn't exist.
Well, it doesn't really exist outside of our minds as a curtain. I mean, a curtain is a function. It's there to draw it, and it blocks out light, but not all the light.
But it is still there.
But if we put it on the floor, it becomes a carpet.
Yeah, true.
But so, I mean, it's like, this is what I would say. It's the Jeet Kune Do approach. Like, it's the martial arts approach to philosophy and politics that I would have, which is like, if it's useful, then use it.
Okay.
If it's not useful, then cast it out. So at the point where you go, nothing is real, okay, well then just stay at home, don't put your socks on, don't have a fucking bank account, don't go to work, and we'll come and get you when you starve to death. You still got to deal with reality at the end of the day. So you're then perverting a good philosophical, political concept and psychological concept, because some psychoanalysts started to pick it up and run with the ball. And usefully, and then sometimes not usefully. Sometimes it just becomes absurd. Whilst we're on the subject of gender, though, do you think that there is the possibility that actually locking people into a very rigid concept of gender roles can be limiting and possibly cause sickness, mental sickness.
I don't know. I've never really read it sort of from a psychological perspective, I suppose. When I was really studying gender, we used a lot more quantitative rather than qualitative research. And we were reading about people who took it more that direction than the qualitative. Sitting around with people and discussing what gender is. I don't know. I psychologically, I really don't know. I was always more concerned with why people behave in a certain way because they've been ascribed that gender. So being rigid, does it make someone sick?
Does it make society sick? Does it limit our options of response?
I don't know.
What do you know about ancient Sparta? Do you know that they fucked a lot with the gender roles? Of the day. I mean, they're still pretty conservative by today's standards.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a whole, there was still, that whole, there's a mass amount of, what's the word, hegemony, but it was possibly male and female hegemony, but it wasn't necessarily gender and it wasn't necessarily sex. Maybe there was something above gender and sex wasn't there, where you were highborn, I suppose, if you're talking about Spartan. So there's probably a highborn hegemony, which is kind of like a caste system, I suppose. So
they let their women
fight.
They didn't actually let them fight, but they let them train in the gymnos. So they would be allowed to train and wrestle and learn.
But saying allowed, that says there's a male hegemony, but if you were allowed to do that, not just happened.
No, I'm not saying there's not a utopia here. I mean, these guys fucking enslaved people. They had slaves called helots. I mean, they weren't like really nice. We should all aspire to be like ancient Sparta, but they were allowed to train athletically, and they were educated, and they were permitted to speak on politics.
Okay.
In a way that in other women in ancient Greece were not. I mean, it was just completely forbidden. It was like the first, flinching stirrings of something that moves slightly towards more equality.
I mean, there's one thing that I read recently which was really interesting. I did a watch the video. Anyway, it was Zizek thing, and he's talking about Scandinavia, and he's saying, but he was actually talking about feminism. It's a longer video, but the bit I remember now is when he's talking about Scandinavia, and he's saying they tried to make as equal a society as they absolutely possibly can. There's free childcare, etc., etc., etc. They've done everything they can to make it as equal as possible. Gender pay. I'm trying to give more examples, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. But what they found is that there's an overwhelming, 80-90% of the caring or jobs that are called caring professions are now filled by women in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
And 80-90% of the jobs, such as engineering and management, are filled by men. And they've tried to level the playing field more than any other country and any other place in time and world ever has before, as I understand it, which that really does quite baffle me that that's happened.
Why?
I don't know, I never ascribed much to your sex, if I'm honest. And I thought if everyone was taught just to act and behave in the same way and ascribe to what they wanted to be, they'd look at someone who inspired them and they tried to become something similar to that, or they found something, or so whatever interested them.
You're saying in a society where people have tried to be as equal as possible, people still fall back to their gender roles?
No, it seems to be more of a sex rather than gender.
That is kind of what you just said. That is kind of what you just said.
Yeah,
you're saying women are still in the traditional caring roles and men are still hitting car engines with a fucking spanner.
Yeah, basically, I suppose. Gender roles. Yeah, I was thinking more of a sex, gender, sexuality split. If I'm honest, I was thinking more sex. But
what would sex have to do with your desire to?
No, your sex. So is it male, female?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I was finding more interesting, right? Because they tried to make the gender role equal, haven't they? They tried to get rid of the whole gender when it comes to jobs.
Yeah.
So it seemed to sort of point towards more what your sex is.
What? What do you mean?
Well, you're born male or female, aren't you?
Yeah.
But your gender comes from the culture.
Yeah. So you gave the example of people in Scandinavia where they've been given an equal society, and women went to what we consider to be traditional women roles, and men went to. So, what's that got to do with sex? Your point might be sailing right over my head.
Right. Okay. What I'm saying is that because they've tried to disintegrate gender roles and they've got rid of any gender bias, and they've tried to make everything as equal as possible.
I don't actually think Scandinavia has ever really tried to disintegrate gender roles.
Right, okay.
I would question that. But let's assume for the sake of argument they did. What is the point that you're making?
It seems to be if you were born a woman or you were born a man, you're almost predisposed to go into one of these professions. Like you'll intrinsically like that more, which messes with my head a little bit more, which really I find really strange.
Good Lord, William, you're going to have people's brains boiling.
I know. It just. Well, hang on. I thought straight away.
Well, hang on. Like there is a little bit of your thinking here that needs to be challenged. What you're presenting this as evidence that if your sex is female, then even in a equal society, you're still going to do traditionally female gendered, not female sexed roles, right?
That's what Zizek was saying when I was listening to you.
I seriously doubt that Zizek would say that. But let's say he did say that he gave that as an example of you're still going to go back to whatever your natural instinct is.
That's a bit of baffled me because I didn't. But I was thinking, that can't be right. I was trying to work out, are those statistics true? Is it 80% that are in care roles? Is it 80%?
Let's assume it is true for the sake of argument, and let's assume that Zizek was making that point, which seems a little bit odd. From a philosophical point of view, just be curious. Is there an alternative explanation other than if you have ovaries, you want to tuck a sick person into bed and mother them? Wait. Yeah. And if you have testes, you want to bang a car engine with a hammer.
Well, it seems ridiculous, doesn't it?
But I'm asking you, is there another explanation there?
Well, it always would have pointed in the past to being a real gender hegemony.
Okay, so my question is this. Is there any country in the world where we are even fucking remotely close to getting beyond gendered ideas of our roles in society?
No, probably not, no.
Fucking no way. I've lived in Sweden. Yeah. It's men and women. It's a very Christian country.
Right.
And men do man things and women do women things. Now, the only difference in Sweden is if you hold a door open for a woman, like I used to at the gym, you get a bit of a funny look. They still go through and they still say, "Tack så mycket," but they give you a bit of a funny look as they do it because it's not normal there. My last girlfriend was raised there, and some of the things that I would do for her, she'd be like, "This is odd." And I'm like, well, I'm English, not Swedish. I carry your bags. And she's like, "I don't want you to do that." And I'm like, but if I'm seen in England not helping you with certain things, I'm going to look like a piece of shit. So shut up and fucking let me do it. And she was like, "Oh, okay." Now that exists in Sweden, but the idea that they're anywhere close to being beyond gender is fucking absurd.
No, I'd never say they were beyond gender, but there seems to be the place that's tried hardest to get beyond gender.
Okay, so this is why like I'm on the side of the debate here where actually we should be using a bit of postmodernist thought to question gender, is because it's so deeply entrenched and deeply ingrained. I'll find that clip. If Zizek has actually said that people in Scandinavia did this, and that proves that women prefer to just be mothers and men prefer to be assertive, masculine tinkerers with machines, I'll be really disappointed.
I don't think he was actually saying it to say prove. I think he was doing it was like a larger video about feminism, and he's saying something about feminism where he's saying that he was saying that women want to have more representation in what's a version of the House of Commons in America?
Senate?
Call it the Senate. So they want more representation in the Senate.
Yeah, but the House of Lords, I think that's what
House of Lords. So they want more representation in the Senate, but feminism constantly says that men and females speak exactly the same way, and they think exactly the same way, and they have the same. They have the same. What's the word? They have the same life experiences.
Right.
So But on the other hand, they're saying that we need...
Sorry, got to stop you there. Feminism fucking doesn't say that. Doesn't say that. Now there might be idiots out there who call themselves feminists who say that's what feminism says, but that is absurd.
No,
it's totally absurd.
Okay, so he's going on and he's saying that so we need more of a feminists are saying we need more of a female point of view in the Senate, but yet they're still saying that men and women think exactly the same way. So how does that? And then he went on to talk about Scandinavia.
I think you're misquoting Zizek here.
Okay.
I'm trying to think because now what you just said rings true to me. He said that some feminists are in a double bind where what they're saying is, here it is, I remembered it. We need to push women into the Senate to even out the numbers. But if men and women are the same, what fucking difference does it make whether you have 100 men?
Exactly, yeah.
And 2 women or 100 women and 2 men if they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
It is a double bind. And there are feminists who are pushing for that, and they can't see their own. It's like a double standard, and it is a catch-22. It's a total double bind. That's absolutely true, and he's 100% right there. Equal means equal.
Yeah,
that's another way of putting it.
Yeah.
So we have Slavoj Žižek, and we have all of these academic feminists. I would quote the stand-up comedian, may he rest in peace, Patrice O'Neill, and he said, when it comes to men and women, equal means equal. Don't ask for equal and then ask instantly for things to be different. Equal fucking means equal. I love equal. Spartan Life Coaches, as far as gender goes, let's do equal. Damn right. I'm all for equal. Show me equal. Show me fucking equal. If I want to stay single for the rest of my life, and let's face it, I might, the first thing I do, and the only thing I need to do to stay single right now, is to treat a girl equally when I start dating her. And I will stay single from the age I am now to the day I die.
Okay.
Why? Because there's something wrong with women? Because they're fucking the ovaries make them crazy? No. Because we live in such a deeply entrenched gendered society. And the reason why, I fucking rail against the deeply entrenched gendered society is you'd be like, oh, you're a fucking white knight, you're just here for the goals, you just want to back the women up. Hang on a fucking second. It hurts men, in my humble opinion, just as much, if not more, to do that. The cost to men in society is huge from this deep gender entrenchment that we have. I switch on the TV, I see Theresa May, my Prime Minister, in the House of Commons with her titties out. Why? Why is that happening? Why can I see her fucking cleavage? When was the last time you saw John Major with his fucking chest out?
I've tried. I can't believe that Theresa May wore a dress or a top with.
You never saw that?
That was that low. No.
The fucking cleavage out, and I'm like, okay, all right, where do you start with that? Like, do you start from the point of view that, so you can either take the man's side of the argument and back the men up and be like, well, I can't do that. I can't go into the House of Parliament in a fucking gym vest. Or do you start from the woman's side of the argument, which would typically be, why does she feel the pressure to present herself as a sexual object in an environment where none of the men are presenting themselves as a sexual object? She has the highest role in the land in terms of power, beneath the Queen, and she's there with her fucking tits out in a low-cut top. Why? That's what I'm talking about.
Nonsensical.
No, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm saying where, and this is again me paraphrasing Patrice O'Neill, we are thousands of years away from equal. Don't think Scandinavia can kiss my ass.
They tried, but
they haven't fucking tried. No, they fucking haven't. Nobody's tried.
Told they tried.
Nobody's tried because they're too weak. Everybody's too fucking weak and too cowardly to actually give it a go. And giving it a go would be very, very tough. But I think we have to. I think we absolutely have to do it. At the point where, and some people will hear this and they'll jump up and down on me going, oh, you're shaming Theresa May. She's not there for your sexual enjoyment. She's just... I'm sorry, but you're the fucking Prime Minister. I don't need to see your fucking mammary glands. Why are your lips painted red? Because that's to mirror the sexual arousal of a woman's labia to make me want to put my dick in your mouth. You laugh, but like, okay, just think. We put, who's that? David Cameron. We're going to pierce his ears. We're going to like dangly earrings and paint his mouth. And we'll put him in like really short shorts where we can see the outline of his balls. And then we'll have,
that's so horrible.
Dude, like, what do you want? Like, I'm just like, you take it from like, women have to shave their legs. Women have to be this. Women have to do that. Men don't have to do it. So you go, well, all right, where does equality start? And the fact that we have Theresa May as Prime Minister, I've had people say that to me on Spartan Life Coach. Do you think it's interesting that the most powerful women in Europe now are women? You've got Angela Merkel, you've got Theresa May, you've got the woman in France whose name escapes me right now. And I'm like, why are you even asking me that? Why?
Marie Le Pen.
Marie Le Pen, thank you. Why do you care? Why is this even a fucking question? They're women. So fucking what? Like, and that's women asking me.
Yeah.
And my frustration is, do you not see, ladies, how you're playing into this deeply entrenched gendered view of the world where it should be exciting and interesting and of note that a woman is running the country? Why?
But I would say that, I can't remember which it was, but when you taught, is it second or is it third wave feminism? So they would say that the third wave feminist would be, but it's all white middle class women that are in these positions of power that are more. I
have to admit that the idea of third wave feminism.
Is that right?
Well, I actually don't know. I left university in '99, and I don't know. I'd stopped reading about feminism after that. So everything that I know about feminism is like at least 18 years out of date. So I actually don't know what third wave feminism.
I think first wave was your suffragettes.
Okay.
I think second wave was your.
They were gangsters.
Yeah.
They were gangsters.
Yeah.
That was some real shit. The suffragettes. That was fucking real. That was a genuine revolutionary effort with violence under the pain of torture and death. They were straight gangsters.
Yeah.
What's second wave?
I think second wave is taking into account more of a trying to have some type of equality.
Right.
And then I think third wave wants to take into account gender, sexuality, culture, disability, all the other.
Oh, right.
Race, ethnicity, wants to take into account all of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to read more. I'd have to know exactly what it is that they're going for. All I would say with all of that, with like whatever so they're trying to represent minority groups, not just women.
Not just white middle class women.
Okay, that all makes sense. My position on all of that would be equal means equal. Equal rights, equal responsibility. Equal means fucking equal. In my lifetime, I will not say it. I mean, it just doesn't exist. You're like, how am I supposed to, from our wedding ceremonies, our marriage vows, the way that people talk to each other, the way that men dress, the way that women dress, all of the, we're stuck somewhere between medieval Europe, where I'm supposed to open a door for a lady because she's almost, it's like this ancient view of men are things where a woman is a place. They're almost like in a mystical other dimension. So she doesn't open the door because she's not supposed to be a physical entity.
I mean, I suppose you could flip it on your head. It's just nice to be nice. You can open the door for anyone, couldn't you?
I don't fucking open the door for anybody, lads. Other than the girl I'm with. Everybody else can fuck off. No, I do open the door for people. But, let's not be hypocrites here. All of my life, like all of my relationships with women are deeply fucking gendered. Deeply, deeply gendered. And even in trying not to be, I still go right back to what my cultural conditioning is. Because culture is not your friend. Culture will train you to be a fucking idiot. And we are stuck. And it's just weakness. It's pure cowardice. We're not choosing. We're somewhere between medieval Europe, where we act like knights. What?
Richard hates weak people.
Listen, lies. That's absolute nonsense. Our wedding vows and this whole marriage thing and the way we're setting up relationships, that wasn't for the poverty-stricken class of peasants back in the day. That was for knights. So this thing where our families get together and we act like we're two medieval families coming together. We're monkeying, we're aping the behaviour of medieval nobility. The wedding gown, the dress, the veil. That's what fucking Lady Guinevere would have worn back in the day. It's all. So I just say, fine. Then let's just choose. Let's do one or the other. You're either going to be. We'll be knights and ladies, or we'll all don the costume of 1984, and we'll all be good socialists, and we'll all just be comrades. You can't have both. You can't cherry pick from two different reality tunnels. Well, you can, because we're living it right now, and we're living the consequences of it. But all it's doing is generating massive levels of divorce like. A level that nobody has ever seen before, and a huge amount of hysteria and trouble.
I honestly prescribe the divorce to that whole superego injunction to enjoy, which will be the next podcast, but that's my actual theory on the whole divorce thing.
Why do you think people get divorced? Go on. Superego injunction to enjoy, because marriage is too dull. They have a right to just experience more pleasure, so that's why people get divorced.
I feel it leads to people going out and seeking that constant pleasure.
I think it's definitely part of the puzzle. I think it's definitely part of the puzzle.
Normally I'd like to give a sort of more of a sociological view, but I do think that is particularly psychological.
Is that not? Yeah, I suppose it is psychological. Just explain what the superego injunction to enjoy is. Go on, give them a bit of Lacanian psychoanalysis, just like that, with no prep.
Yeah. Your id is your base desires and base needs, yeah?
Yeah.
Your superego is the thing that keeps... which understands culture and understands what's good and what's bad, and keeps your id in check.
Yeah.
And your ego is the how does it keep the id in check as well? I can't remember how the ego works.
Well, it's sort of like in transactional analysis, they break it down into three things, and they say child, adult, and parent. So the child would be impulsive. It just wants what it wants. If it wants to start fiddling with itself, it will. If it wants to throw its poop on the wall, then it will do that. Yeah. That's the id. That's the child.
Well, it wants pleasure, doesn't it?
It wants pleasure. The adult is there to moderate between the two realities: the internal reality, the base desires, and the.
Your ego tries to speak to your id, doesn't it, and explain why it can't just have what it wants.
In a functioning person, there should be a negotiation between the ego and the id, which is the negotiation between the adult and the child. The superego
feels shame.
Yes, it will. The ego feels shame. The superego tells the ego when to feel shame.
Yeah.
And so in transactional analysis, that would be the parent tells the adult when to feel shame. So it's kind of like, literally you should be thinking of an Abrahamic God, a judge, a Führer, a dictator, somebody above you wagging the finger going, this is what needs to happen right now. Whether you find it pleasurable or not, you must.
Yeah.
You must. That's one of the few bits of Bosnian that I remember is Timorash.
So if you go... probably not back in time, but if you study some stuff about the superego, it will constantly, your books, what you'll read and what you'll see online will constantly explain to you that superego keeps you in check with cultural norms and with the law, and it will make you feel shame for doing bad things and for not being in touch with your cultural surroundings. Probably that's a good.
Yeah, no, I think the word shame is a really, really good one. So it tries to keep you in line with healthy shame in a healthy person, and it will become toxic shame in somebody who's being the victim of abuse.
So the superego injunction to enjoy tries to say that because we're told to constantly enjoy by the neoliberal capital culture that's existed for the last 20 years, but if you're not feeling pleasure 24/7, you feel shame for not feeling that pleasure. So you end up forcing yourself to feel pleasure constantly.
And this superego injunction to enjoy is in opposition to the old superego injunction, which was to restrain.
Yeah, and live within your cultural boundaries.
So the old, more like Protestant Christian ideology of work hard, be disciplined, don't overindulge in carnal pleasure, because don't steal. That's where sin gets in. Be quite restrained and quite stiff.
Be civil.
That was the superego injunction to inhibit or restrain. I need to look that one up. So this is the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. So the idea was, well, that's how we've lived for centuries, and then recently it's become the opposite. Instead of you must obey the law and be civil, now it's you must go out and party and have a really good time.
Yeah.
And where previously you would feel guilty for being a sinner and enjoying carnal pleasure, now you will feel guilty for not being a sinner and not enjoying carnal pleasure, and that becomes the superego injunction to enjoy.
As I understand it, which could be completely wrong.
As we two idiots sat on this couch understand it. So just briefly, can you explain how that can screw marriages up?
Well, as I see it, if you have one person who's really dialed in to the culture around them, especially to Western culture, and is really, really dialed into Love Island, they're not probably inevitably, they're going to either seek other partners because we want drama. They want drama,
lad.
Or they're going to go out as far as they possibly can to seek pleasure, which might not be with you anymore or with the partner they've chosen, so they're just going in that direction constantly, so it might force that relationship apart because that relationship isn't giving them the pleasure that they need.
I actually spoke last night briefly to a woman who's an Albanian Muslim who lives in New York, and she married a Kosovan Muslim who also lives in New York, and their relationship, he eventually ended the relationship. The divorced is now looking for a divorce, and she thinks, she didn't say it in those words, but she thinks that is why, so that he can go back out and start drinking and partying and being with other women, because being in a stable monogamous relationship was just not something that he wanted to do. I do agree that there is that is impacting the marriage rates, the superego injunction to enjoy, but that we have expectations that are deeply entrenched around gender roles that need to be questioned. We can't be living in Disney and the Kardashians at the same time, or if we try to, it's going to be completely schizophrenic. We should do a podcast on that. We should do a podcast on superego injunction to enjoy and marriages, and how to actually be a grown-up when you get into a marriage.
Ooh, that's interesting.
And how to stay a grown-up in the marriage.
Excellent.
Go mad. Right, we'll leave it there.
Thanks.
Cheers.